Let me retweet this. We are live on Periscope and D live on Facebook. Let me pull up the Periscope. I like to have that on my iPad. And YouTube. What's up, everybody? Twitch to be live shortly. I'm live, of course, on TalkStream Live and JLP Live. Am I on screen or off screen? Just out of curiosity. What's up, everybody? It is 9:02 a.m. U.S. Pacific Standard Time, Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020, 23rd, 24th, 25th. 3 days till Christmas. 2 days till Christmas Eve. And yes, we are live on Christmas Eve, but we'll probably have like a not doing Christmas Day, right? All right? Yes. It's a Christian holiday, a Christian pagan holiday. No video on Facebook, Hake. No, I should be live, guys. Press 1 if you see me. All right, so I'm going to be touching on, well, some election updates. I have information on this guy who I had previously maybe called well, not maybe, I'm pretty sure I called him a coward. He was in hiding. Police told him not even to go home for a while. It was crazy. Over in Detroit area in Michigan, more than a month ago, we had talked about this William Hartman guy and another woman, Monica Palmer, over in Wayne County Board of Canvassers. What a mess. I had called them cowards. She was called by the president, and he was told by cops not to go home. And he was given a police escort. They would pass by to this day, supposedly, they were passing by his house. What a mess. Hake had to count on his fingers, said Farsights. Yes. And I have other items to talk about. The electoral college thing is coming up January 6th, right? Mo Brooks is saying that he wants to contest, and some other congressmen are. And there are some senators, including Rand Paul and I think the senator-elect, whom I mentioned before, Coach, whatever his name, Tommy Tuberville, is open to contesting it. I don't know why they don't just commit to it. And TPUSA is doing their event, right? They're doing this Student Action Summit. And I played you a clip from Tucker Carlson's speech, which took place, I think, on Saturday or something. And President Trump called in just recently, I think yesterday maybe. All kinds of stuff happening. It's a fun event, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of hit and miss. To be expected. This so-called COVID relief bill is supporting all kinds of mess, but not reopening the country, right? We should reopen the country. It's a mess. And I looked into, there is this whole section of Twitter that is these female-minded, at least, but female generally, so-called MDs. They put MDs in their name, as in medical doctors and female nurses and stuff. They're a bunch of liberals scaremongering and grandstanding and acting like they're so self-important with regard to this COVID thing. And it's a mess. It's crazy. And so there's talk of the vaccines, and by the way, they're pro-abortion and all kinds of stuff. What a mess. Such interesting stuff going on. So all that and your calls. And by the way, I came across this article from 2019 about Facebook content moderators. We're not officially employed by Facebook. They're contracted by some other company. And it's not a job for emotional women, but emotional women work this job. And they're in charge of whether you get your free speech on Facebook or not, which the answer for short is not. But there are some people changing their minds. It's funny. And of course, I have that information from yesterday that I didn't get to. They want you unhealthy. And people are unhealthy mentally, physically, spiritually. What a mess. So anyway, all that in your calls, 888-775-3773. Let's get on with the show.
Have you been naughty or nice?
It's the Hake Report, the Hake Report. La, la, la. It's the Hake Report, the Hake Report. La, la, la.
Hey guys!
It's the Hake Report, the Hake Report. La, la, la. It's the Hake Report, the Hake Report. La, la, la.
So, how are you all doing? I am fine. I have some quick updates on the election stuff that I touched on in Hake News. At the end of hour 2 of the Jesse Lee Peterson show today, I touched on some of this stuff going on. There was a hostile reaction to these election officials who are on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers. They're the ones in charge of certifying the election results for Wayne County specifically. So it can get passed on up to the state, and then the state can certify it and pass it on to Congress or whatever. And then Congress can decide whether they want to certify it. Or it gets passed to the state, and then the state decides the electors, whether it's a Biden elector or a Trump elector, a such and such elector, or such and such elector, right? And so there were there's four on the Board of Canvassers, right? I don't know why it's called Board of Canvassers. Canvassing has to do with like knowing how many voters there are or something like that, or whatever. Has to do with the election. 2 whites, 2 blacks. A man and a woman, white Republicans. The blacks are Democrats, of course, right? Which ones are you going to trust? If you had to choose, if you had to profile, which ones are more likely to be honest? Republicans or Democrats? Whites or blacks? I don't know. I'm saying I don't know, but whoa, I know. So I read about this in Hake News. Remember that President Trump, that is, had called that lady, Monica Palmer, who is the white lady on the Board of Canvassers, Wayne County, who initially voted against certifying the election results in her county. And they were trying to say, oh, we're investigating her because she's in charge of this PAC that has anonymous donors that's related to this. I think it's either a private school or a school district that is very hotly contested. Politics in Detroit are very hotly contested, or that area, very hotly contested. And, you know, Detroit is known to be pretty corrupt. Isn't there a former mayor of Detroit or something who's in jail or something like that, or served time in prison? Is that Kwame Kilpatrick? Black? Democrat? He's not the only one, I wouldn't think, who is corrupt. Anyway, this William Hartman guy was the other guy who was the other Republican who was waiting to certify the results. Now I heard that, these discrepancies amounted to 450 votes when the votes that Biden supposedly won by was 15,000. So it doesn't even matter. But I don't know. So William Hartman worked with a friend and cops after he was threatened, because I told you guys in Hake News that he didn't even go home. He didn't even go home. He was escorted to a friend's house, and he didn't have clothes or anything other than what he was wearing. And so he worked with a buddy of his, a friend, and cops. The friend worked with cops to retrieve some clothes and his computer from his home. And this is what Hartman said. He arranged, meaning his friend, with the local police department to have an unmarked van and a couple of police cars go to my house. I gave him the key and stayed in a remote location, and we communicated using FaceTime. And I told him what to get. FaceTime. Have you ever FaceTimed with somebody? Like, I go to the computer, I'm like, is this thing's... I call up Bill, the black engineer. Bill! And I'm FaceTiming him, but I'm pointing the camera to the contraptions that I don't understand how they work. Tell me what to do. Is this supposed to be on? And then he says, yeah, push this button. Well, this guy did that with his clothes and items that he wanted, computer stuff, for his friend to pick up for him. And he's a boomer, this guy, by the way. So they did that, and the police cars sort of blocked in the news media vans, because news media vans were camped basically outside this guy's house. And they showed the front of his house and his address, and so he was getting all these threats and stuff. And then some other van that they used, they take the license plates off so that they couldn't be tracked down, that drove in different ways to get to where he was. And then he got out of his stuff and drove back to where he was staying. Crazy, huh? So he was doxxed, and then some blue checkmark guy named Del Quinton Wilbur, a blue checkmark liberal on Twitter, tried to show that this guy's a Republican who mocked Obama in the past in 2010. Who wasn't mocking Obama, who was sane, right? As if that makes him biased, right? And I show, like, all the time, oh, such and such is a Democrat. Look at what they've tweeted before. But this is not a valid thing, because this guy is trying to work out in his mind what happened with these shenanigans, like with these votes that are out of sync, right? The number of paper ballots versus the number of counted votes or whatever is not in sync. It may be an overcount, or it may be some other innocent explanation, but he is trying to get to the bottom of it. And he's filed FOIA requests. FOIA is F-O-I-A, Freedom of Information Act. And when you file a FOIA request or submit a FOIA subpoena or lawsuit, I don't know what it is, but you do a FOIA request, sometimes the government doesn't comply, but they're supposed to comply, but they've ignored his FOIA requests because he's trying to do his own investigation to see what was going on. And by the way, they changed their votes under duress. They claimed that it wasn't under duress, that they were promised that there would be an independent audit of the results. And then Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State for Michigan, said, psych? Well, she wasn't the one who promised the audit, but she's all, no, we're not going to do an audit. And then I guess that somebody else maybe said, well, we should do an audit. So I don't know whether there's a real audit or whether there's a real explanation of what happened. But he was trying to do an investigation. Sidney Powell, the great Sidney Powell lady, is filed some appeal or something like that with the Supreme Court, trying to get to what happened on behalf of the Michigan voters. So it's just a big mess. But this guy, let me show you some of the memes that came forward. You might have seen them if you're watching the video. You might have seen them in the beginning of the beautiful intro music. Shout out to Trevor Wesley for the Christmas version of the Hake Report theme song. But this Wayne County Republican canvasser shared memes on Facebook. And this is what reminded me about Kwame Kilpatrick. I think Kwame Kilpatrick. Apparently he or somebody else was wearing a t-shirt that has a picture of a license plate. Michigan, Detroit. And it has a picture of this black guy in a striped prisoner suit. Kwame made my license plate. Funny, huh? Typical funny boomer Facebook meme, right? And this is supposed to be like proof that this guy's biased or something like that. And then he did another one with Obama on apparently like a spinner or something. This meme with multiple colors. Obama with a missing tooth, by the way. And it's like goofy, makes him look like a cartoon character. And it says, break stuff, steal things. Interesting. Barack Obama did a lot of that during his presidency, especially in supporting Black Lives Matter, but not just that. And actually, I remember shortly after he was elected or took office or something, there were crazy riots in some of these cities. And you would hear interviews. I remember hearing about it on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. This is back in 08 or 09, right? When Obama first took office. There were black young people, kids sometimes, who would describe the reason for their rioting. I was just angry. And they're rioting over who knows what. And I feel like I remember hearing Jesse Lee Peterson talking about when the first black mayor of Gary, Indiana took office or was elected. It was like open season on whites for the blacks. It's like in your face to the white man. And they would beat up whites and just go crazy. And I think that's around the time that Jesse Lee Peterson decided to move back to the country rather than the city, right? He shared another meme about Obama, Muslims, and NASA. Talk about boomer memes, right? It's kind of funny. And you see Barack Obama with a cigarette in his mouth. The rumor has it that Obama was or is a smoker, as in a cigarette smoker. And there's a picture of this Will Smith-looking Muslim guy saying, "I'm only interested in learning how to fly it, not to land it." I don't know. It might be a sort of a 9/11 reference. I'm not sure. And then a picture of Barack Obama in a pirate hat and pirate eye patch with a weird rainbow looking weird bow tie, like a lot of blacks wear, hoop earrings, and a funny mustache, like a pirate mustache, and a cigarette. And these are some of the memes that this guy, William Hartman, was posting on his Facebook as a typical boomer Facebook conservative guy. Harmless. So he was doxxed, and this, by the way, this guy who dug up these memes or shared them on Twitter, Del Quinton Wilbur, whom I mentioned, is an LA Times scribe and author, according to him. Former Wall Street Journal. I told you guys about Wall Street Journal. Rhino outlet. Liberals. They're the scum of the earth. They believe in the racism thing. They smeared PewDiePie for nothing. So he's LA Times, Bloomberg News, Washington Post, Baltimore Sun, recovering police reporter, board member of the Washington, D.C. Press Club. That might be the White House Press Club, but it may be just the D.C. Press Club in general. In other words, he's a swamp so-called journalist. That's a double whammy. So right on to this guy. I'm sorry for calling you a coward, I guess. I'm not sure. I still wish that they hadn't voted to certify these two whites. The lady her name was, or is, Monica Palmer. The man, William Hartman, 2 N's. But they're just normal conservative people. Anyway, speaking of election integrity, Georgia. The state of Georgia, the Secretary of State, actually, that rhino guy, Brad Raffensperger, sent out letters to out-of-state voters who had asked for mail ballots because there are, in some cases, there's legitimate out-of-state voters who want to vote in the state that they officially reside in, such as military members or students or whatever. But it could be, possible shenanigans. So Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger sent thousands of letters to inform these people that a person who casts a ballot in Georgia elections without possessing the qualifications are committing a felony under Georgia law. Nice. I guess that's for the upcoming runoff between the two Republicans whom are definitely suspected rhinos, Kelly Loeffler, L-O-E, something like that, F-F-L-E-R, and that David Perdue guy, whom I played a clip of him. He was saying something like, "Oh, it's going to be nice working with Biden and Mitch McConnell," or I think he said Mitch McConnell. Yeah, Mitch McConnell and Biden have been co-workers for a long time. He didn't use the term co-workers, but I am, and so they can get stuff done. A rhino and a Democrat. Guess which way that's going to go for the Democrats. It's not going to go for conservatives or for America. What a mess. So that's David Perdue. You do the math and see if you want to vote for these people. Maybe you should. I don't know. But the letters mentioned, I think, that convictions for fraudulently casting a ballot can yield sentences of up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $100,000. Nice. That would be nice. But I think that's just, I don't really trust Raffensperger to be a stickler for getting at real election integrity. I just don't. Not all the voters identified by his office are acting illegally necessarily, okay? Of course. Some might be. Anyway, this January 6th is when the electoral votes that took place on the 14th or whenever that was, Congress lawmakers, I think it's the joint session of Congress, there are some lawmakers who are vowing to oppose those electoral votes and say, hey, no, we have a problem here. And that's coming up on January 6th. Representative Mo Brooks, Republican from Alabama, the great state of Alabama, was the first to say he's going to challenge those electoral votes, college votes that day. President Donald Trump turned on the heat, and he tweeted out, well, he called on his supporters to show up because there is a Stop the Steal rally happening January 6th in D.C., Washington, D.C. Nice. StopTheSteal.us probably has details. He said, be there. We'll be wild, he tweeted. President Trump did. But listen to this. And I don't have a direct quote, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Rhino from Kentucky, who has a Chinese wife, or Asian, right, has acknowledged former Vice President Joe Biden as the so-called president-elect. And that's amid standing legal challenges by President Trump and on the results of the election in 7 states. McConnell has urged Republican senators not to join in on the challenge. Wow. So do you have high hopes that this thing is going to get overturned to what we think is the right thing? He argues that it will create harmful optics for the party. To the lawmakers who plan to stand up for Trump, the opposite is true. And I agree with them. Why be such a rhino and just roll over and cave to the worst people in the world, including Joe Biden? He's an awful person. Several House Republicans have joined Mo Brooks, saying they'll challenge the electoral votes, including Matt Gaetz. All right. Republican from Florida. He's one of those young guys. Representatives-elect, 4 representatives-elect who will begin their terms January 3rd. More, I don't know who that is. Bob Good, Republican from Virginia. Madison Cawthorn, he's that young guy who, people were kind of excited about him. He's wheelchair-bound. But he's also written some really cringe-worthy rhino things. Not just cringe-worthy, cringe-inducing rhino things. Like he wrote some disgusting piece in the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's outlet, which Ben Shapiro would make Ben Shapiro blush. Marjorie Taylor Greene, that Q lady, QAnon lady. Right on, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia. Madison Cawthorn is from North Carolina. So, the South representing, right on, appreciate you Southerners, even if those people are a bunch of women and rhinos. But we'll see. Mo Brooks said that there are more than enough House members on board to challenge each of the 7 disputed states. 1 member of the House and 1 member of the Senate are required to lodge a challenge. No senators have committed to joining the challenge, okay? Ridiculous. And Mitch McConnell is discouraging them from doing that. But 5 senators, including Rand Paul from Kentucky and Tommy Tuberville, who's a senator-elect, I guess he takes office January 3rd, too. I don't know. A Republican from Alabama indicated they're open to joining the challenge. We'll see what happens. What a mess. Thank you to Noah's Ark, Kansas, for the diamond. Jesse Lee Peterson hosting the Hake Report on D-Live. Jenny Crosby 2020 gave a diamond and said, evidence doesn't matter as long as ACB, Amy Coney Barrett, is a justice. So-called justice. Interesting. Ledge Klinger gave a diamond and said, Hake, I cringe when you say scare-mongering. You can't say monger, you can't monger scare, but you can monger fear. It's fear-mongering. Oh. Thanks for the heads up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to break that. Ledge Klinger gave a diamond. I'm not convinced, but you're probably right. He says, you full white? Love the show. Keep it up. Thank you, Ledge Klinger. Appreciate the tip. I'll have to look into that or keep that in mind. Scaremongering or fearmongering? I don't know. You can monger scares, right? Scare can be a noun, right? It's a scare, like the Red Scare was legitimate. The COVID scare, less so. But it serves the Red's purpose. Not red as in Republican, red as in commie. Shameful. I don't know, Ledge Klinger, but thank you. So I have more of this stuff. Speaking of the COVID scare, man. Female doctors, man. COVID is fake. The scare is real. Yeah. In short, right? Let me get to Jack, a first-time caller in Texas. He wants to talk about the COVID death rates. Jack, thanks for calling. What's up?
How you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, I'm a fan of the show. I'm a free market capitalist. I'm just calling to discuss the mortality rate. Not only is it, it's artificially inflated, just like the Fed stock market, but the death rate of 2020 is actually down from 2019. You won't hear anyone talking about it, and not that those who do know about it are suppressing it. I'm just saying it's one of those things you really need to look at, and you may know about it, but my point is, let's talk death rate, and it's actually down from 2019. You will never hear this. The data may be hard to find, but it is a true 100% fact. One more true 100% fact. You're talking
about overall deaths?
Absolutely, and
yeah.
Aside from the fraudulent COVID deal, but one other thing before we go, I want to point out.
Well, hold on. You're talking about the death rate from 2019 to the death rate of 2020 overall in America.
Right.
You know what? That's what Richard Spencer told me on my show. And he's on, or was at least, on board with this COVID scare. He believed in it. And he said that the mortality rate of those who get this thing is 3%, he said. And I don't know if that's true. It looked like from the worldwide so-called official numbers that that was holding true, although I just don't see it. So I don't know. You know, when everybody's forced inside, what else are they going to do? They can't go outside and get themselves killed. You normally get yourself killed outside, right? So even with the high, is the suicide up?
Yeah, suicide is up, but I want to bring up the fact that people aren't going into the hospitals where actually people are injected with things that kill them. You know, the business model of hospitalization, the business model is to get people in and out or to get them in a body bag. And also to understand the electromagnetic spectrum, the frequency that's increasing with the new technology. People don't know these things, okay? And I'm no conspiracy nut. I'm simply, my grandpa was in the Marine Corps, and he worked with electromagnetic, basically weaponry. And I've been studying the magnetism field, the electromagnetic spectrum. And 60 gigahertz is the absorption spectrum of oxygen, and that's what's going to be broadcasting the new frequency of technology. It's 60 gigahertz.
Is that 5G stuff?
Well, I mean, define 5G. You know, I don't put blanket terms on things. I more or less study the science and study the facts. I don't put blanket terms. Like, I'm not a Republican or Democrat. I'm an independent. I have, Ron Paul libertarian ideas, and I'm a free market kind of guy. So you don't know if the 5G stuff is contributing to that electromagnetic thing. Well, as we've increased the electromagnetic spectrum, there's increasing symptoms, and so it could be a coincidence that there's a correlation in the symptoms that they're claiming from COVID, and a correlation in the symptoms that one would induce after being surrounded by an increase in the electromagnetic spectrum. So who's projecting an electromagnetic spectrum? I don't know anything about this. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Not many people do. But who is doing it? Who is doing it? Well, I mean, it's the telecom industry that is also exempt from any legal liability in the same vaccine, as the vaccine pharmaceuticals are exempt from legal liability. So is the telecom. You can't sue a telecom based on. So it's like cell phone towers and things like that, and electrical power lines and power stations and stuff like that. Well, again, that's a very blanket term, but when people go into I mean, I get, cell phone towers having that's a part of it, but understanding millimeter waves and understanding what's being sold to the public of the millimeter wave and the new technology, as opposed to the old generation that we're waning off people. We want to, the new iPhones have the things in them that can receive millimeter waves, as opposed to the iPhone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They connect with the electromagnetic radiation field in a different way than millimeter waves, which have been used since the 60s and 70s as electromagnetic weapons.
I gotcha.
So I want people to understand these things. I know we're limited on time, but and I know you're good at this. You're opening the dialogue and discussion, but people need to research things such as 60 gigahertz and it being the absorption spectrum of oxygen.
Interesting. Appreciate the tip on that.
Yeah, and that's all. And understand what 60 gigahertz is. That's the new broadcast spectrum for the new generation of technology. And again, I know you're good at not putting blanket terms on things, and I respect your show and respect you. And understanding where the legal liability is exempt, such as
that is interesting. It's concerning that these huge companies get themselves safe from lawsuits. Meanwhile, the rest of us can get sued for anything, especially if we're white.
Right. Absolutely. And hey, have a great day.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it, man. Take care. Did you guys follow that? I kind of understood. Basically, like, there's concerns with regard to the new cell phones and different things like that. With, what they call it, radiation. People, like, you hear about kids being around these high electricity towers and things like that. I don't know if it's cell phone towers or power lines or whatever. And, there's power lines that are buzzing. You hear, it's just constantly buzzing. And if it's making noise, it feels like it's making radiation, right? Causing brain cancer, maybe. I don't know. There's all kinds of... It's a total mystery. Like, we're human experiments on ourselves for the sake of convenience. It's so convenient. Yeah, Cookie Boys says he was talking word salad. I didn't comprehend everything, for sure. But, yeah, we let the law stop us from protecting ourselves. And then these vaccines, too. If you're so confident in your vaccine, how are you going to protect yourself from being sued by the people? Or why don't you just build in, since you know that it's going to harm some people? Everybody knows that every vaccine, it harms at least a tiny minority of people, right? It just does. And why don't you build into it, like, oh, man, he got killed, or, oh, man, he got such and such side effect. Automatic, as long as you know that it really happened, automatic give him some type of compensation, right? But I heard that there's a completely different court. Somebody called into my show and say there's a completely different court to handle that, and rather than a normal lawsuit court. But meanwhile, the normal lawsuit courts allow frivolous lawsuits, but this doesn't seem like it's a frivolous lawsuit if it's real, if somebody's actually affected by these things. Some people have speculated about this, there's this speculation or people say that it is or it isn't with regard to the vaccines, and some people claim that vaccines cause or are correlated with increased autism and stuff like that. Some say, no, that's been proven false. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. You think about feminism and the decline of morals in our country. Somebody brought up on Twitter, I saw it on Twitter, and this is all speculation, that the age that women are having the babies is much older. And people talk about the food that they're eating too and everything else. So when you have a baby at an older age, that baby's more likely to have problems than when you have babies at a younger age, healthier age. And so could that be the correlation with increased autism and peanut allergies and things like that. No offense, Joel. But all kinds of weird things. Asthma, like crazy. People, they just don't make kids like they used to, huh? Yeah, Based AF, Based America First says there's a strong correlation with delaying childbirth with autism, too. Interesting. See? Oh, that avocado toast. I don't know. But there's a whole lot of things going awry, and especially morals. Especially morals. I was watching this nature show, just to briefly do a side note. I was watching this nature show, right? And of course, the nature show is talking about, oh, this is at risk because the polar ice caps are melting. Global warming. This is going to affect everything in the world. And the things that we do affect things. But these same people don't care about just flushing morals down the toilet. Oh, that's old values. This is 2020. And it's funny because I saw clips of, in 2005, I can't believe we're still talking about this. And so you hear these alt-right guys talking about, it's the current year, and we're talking about this. But we've dropped all kinds of morals and family and brought in all this LGBTQIA stuff and this diversity nonsense as if it's a real value. And all these dumb liberal fake values. And women going to school and getting a job and making all this money before they ever decide to get married, and then they're panicking, and then they're depressed, and then they finally get married all desperate and then have a baby, and it has problems. What a mess. So where is the concern about the things that we're doing that affect actual humanity immediately in our same lifetime? But no. They only want to talk about this stuff that nobody can really confirm or deny. This stuff that nobody really knows about climate change and all that stuff, and COVID. I'm going to get to that. Let me get to a couple of other callers. Robert in Kansas wants to talk briefly about the 5G info and vaccines. Robert, what's up?
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
What you were just saying about the sick kids, that's because of vaccines. That's what hurts them.
That's what some say, yeah.
Yeah, it causes allergies, neurological disorders, and then usually it's later in life, but they also cause cancer. And so what they're doing is basically just trying to make everybody a customer of the medical industry. And the thing is that it's so evil that the average person can't really begin to even comprehend it. But that's what it is.
All right.
Your last caller about the 5G towers, very interesting caller. I wanted to say that this new vaccine could have nanotech in it, which apparently they can use these frequencies to just control you physically and mentally, put you to sleep, stop your heart, whatever they want to do. So that's something to consider. Also, there's a theory that these frequencies can be used in conjunction with metals, like certain metals. So you see them spraying the sky. That's mostly aluminum. It's other stuff, too, but it's mostly aluminum. Our food and water could be spiked in a way to put metals into your body. And then these same frequencies could just basically control you again, whatever they want to do. Very important exercise, clean water, and saunas. I highly suggest saunas if you can get a sauna once a week.
Nice.
Very good for you. Yeah. So just some warnings there. And before if you have any questions, obviously I want to talk, Hake, but I wanted to know real quick if you've ever researched any sort of flight paths to prove or disprove a globe Earth model.
No, I'm not interested. I haven't researched.
All right. Well, if you try to fly from Johannesburg to Perth for whatever reason, you land in Dubai, and it's there's no other way to get there. Apparently, it's very, very interesting stuff. So, anyway, that's all I have, brother.
All right, appreciate it, Robert. Thank you for the tips.
All right, man. You done with me?
Yeah.
All right, boys. See you later.
All right, take care. Interesting. I hadn't heard about some of that stuff. I had heard some of that stuff. But it's good advice. Exercise. Clean water. Base America First. I remember he gave me a super chat with a link to waterwithvincent.com. Nice. Get my clean water. Sauna. Yeah, sweat it out. Interesting, huh? Let me quickly get to Rick in Hampton, Virginia. He wants to talk about one of the Georgia politicians, the black one. Rick, what's up?
Yes. Go ahead. Hey, my brother James, man, love you, man. Good it's morning your time. Is
Afternoon yours. Nice.
Coast. Man, I am so glad to start to wake up about this doggone that Warnock guy down there in Georgia.
Raphael Warnock, that he's a black so-called reverend from Baltimore, I think, originally. Or something.
Yeah, and he's over Martin Luther King Church, and see, that's how a lot of black politicians get blacks to vote for him. I walk with Martin Luther King, and they'll say that, and man, they're just fall head over heels, man.
How old is that Raphael Warnock guy?
What's that, James?
How old is that guy?
He's about 50-something in his early 50s.
Yeah, 51. Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't walk with MLK.
50s.
MLK was killed 4 years before he was born. Something like that. 65, right?
No, what I'm saying, too,
63.
I was just saying, too, most black politicians use that to get blacks to vote for them.
Yeah, I know.
I mean?
They totally do. It's so ridiculous. And these guys are such jokes. There's two black politicians who did that a lot who've died now. They were former congressmen. John Lewis and that guy that says, "Come on, man," Elijah Cummings.
Yeah. And they never have anything to campaign on. Never, no kind of economic policies or nothing.
Yeah, unless they're unless they're outright socialists, steal from the whites and give to the POCs.
That's their campaign message.
Yeah.
That is their campaign message. They never have anything to campaign on, but blame whites for their problems that they bring upon themselves.
I know. It's
and
awful.
They know, and I see why, black community can't prosper, because they're doing some evil policies, and then, as God said, when you leave me, I leave you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mess.
Yep.
I appreciate it, Rick.
And, no problem, James. Love you, brother. God bless you, man.
All right. Take care. Wow, I don't know where he is. Outdoors, I would imagine. Let me talk to Cody in Sacramento, California. He wants to talk about the vaccines and the autism stuff. Cody, what's up? Hang on, Cody. Too much noise. You and Rick. We'll check on him. So, guys, let me tell you briefly in the last 15 minutes of this first hour here. Self-important female liberal nurses / so-called doctors on Twitter. So I came across this from Bruh Moments. And they spell it BRUH, but it's kind of like bro moments. I guess that's how blacks and young people pronounce it now. Bruh. On Twitter, he shared this female nurse, and this particular one is a COVID nurse, drama queen, white, I think, who posted this thing back in November, a month ago. I will get back to Cody. Hang tight, Cody. Hang tight. Catherine Ivey, Kathryn, Ivey, Ivey. She posted how it started, how it's going. A little meme on Twitter, and she posted a March picture of herself as just having graduated from nursing school or whatever, right? All young and pretty and innocent with a smile on her face. Wet behind the ears. What's that mean? I think that means inexperienced, right? Hair is all nice with a portrait sort of cloudy, weird background, wearing a vaguely old school nurse shirt. Modest. And then this is a November 22nd tweet that went kind of viral. It has 975 100,000 likes, according to this, and 90,000 retweets. And she's just a normal nobody on Twitter, basically, right? And then she posted a how it's going photograph. And she looks all haggard. Her face is indented with the mask, which the USA Today describes as personal protective equipment. The imprint from her on her face, bags under her eyes, makeup a little bit not perfect, and you can even see a nose ring on her nostril, one of her nostrils, and a necklace that's not right, and showing skin, and she's wearing a nurse's scrubs, right? And her hair is all a mess and thin and messy and sweaty and gross, and she just looks a mess. She looks like she might have been on drugs, or she reminds me actually of this Rihanna picture that Rihanna put out 11 years ago or so, in 2009, when Rihanna got beat up allegedly by Chris Brown. She's for sure on antidepressants, speculates Chris, although he says that it's for sure. Yeah, maybe so. This woman has problems. But anyway, it reminds me of those pictures of Rihanna when she posted pictures of her face all beat up. And women do this a lot. They post pictures of themselves either beat up or looking haggard. And it's like they want you to feel sorry for them. Look at Rihanna. I guess she's in a doctor's office, and she looks like she has a black eye and swollen face and a bleeding lip and stuff. This is Rihanna, the singer. She's a pop singer, degenerate black Islander singer. I say degenerate because it's kind of dirty, the stuff that she promotes and does. Her face is all beat up, supposedly from getting into fights with her then boyfriend at the time, Chris Brown, who is another singer. I used to think he might be a rapper, but I think he just sings. He has like this high-pitched, soft, girly voice, but popular, Chris Brown. And so that's what that picture reminds me of. By the way, like Chris Brown, he pleaded guilty to it, but he said that they would get into fights with each other, and she kicked him and punched him, and I guess he went into a rage and didn't even understand why he did this, but he punched her in the mouth and she was bleeding, and what a mess. I think she went into his phone and found he was cheating, according to her imagination. Maybe he was, really. And she never forgave him, and it was just a mess, and she was hell to be with, and he was a woman about it too, female-minded. And it was funny because back at that, maybe like 10 years later or 7 years later or 9 years later, Snapchat let this company advertise this thing about would you rather, right? This company that's a game for Snapchat, which is an app that kids used to like to do. Would you rather slap Rihanna or punch Chris Brown was something that came out in like 2017 or 2018 or maybe even 2019. And Rihanna got all high and mighty, acting like, oh, you shouldn't make a joke about victims of domestic violence. Well, according to Chris Brown, she was domestically violent herself. It takes two to tango usually, but she played the victim. And that's how I feel about this nurse woman posting this picture of herself all like, oh, COVID got me haggard and worn out. She's like 28 years old. And she posted another one in December. Oh, one more day till I get the vaccine. And by the way, you can tell she's a liberal because she has the nose ring in her face. She just looks like somebody that, what is she trying to, that's not attractive. That's weird. And around that time, mid-December, 10 days ago or so, she quote tweeted, remember that clip that Jesse Lee Peterson played from those guys, I think they came on the show, that New Jersey gym, Attilis gym or something like that, who are staying open because these shutdowns are evil? And this guy, he showed this clip of him. I don't know if this particular clip was played, but he showed this guy who's a co-owner of this gym over in New Jersey, that has stayed open despite the shutdowns. People exercising. Nobody's spreading COVID. It's dumb. Which, even if they are, they're not spreading it to old people. They're exercising, staying healthy. Good for them. And so this Kyle Kashuv guy, who's a pro-Second Amendment young man, he tweeted this video of this gym owner keeping his gym open, defying the communist Democrat New Jersey governor's shutdown orders, right? And Kyle Kashuv says, patriot. And so this woman, all grandstanding, this female nurse with the nose ring, quote tweets that patriot video and says, patriots make sacrifices for their country and their people. They don't risk the lives of others for the sake of a misguided crusade against science, common sense, and decency. You are a coward who will never the consequences for your actions. I think it's never see the consequences for your actions, but I will. She's acting like, oh, because you're keeping your gym open, I guess, you're not going to see the consequences of your actions, but I will. She's based in, not even in New Jersey. She's based in some other state, I think. And anyway, she's speculating. She doesn't have any clue how much a gym being open is spreading COVID. What a grandstanding, self-righteous, phony. She's calling herself a patriot. How arrogant. Typical liberal. By the way, she's an artist. And, you know, she has a boyfriend, and he's silly. Such a mess. But she's trashing a guy who's getting people healthy and fit, and that's probably protecting them. They're nothing better for your immune system than to be healthy and fit, right? What a mess. By the way, she had this whole USA Today article written about her because her how it started, how it's going thing went viral, because I guess liberals thought, ooh, that's cool, or that's terrible. She was just a, I think their headline said something, their headline was ridiculous. It said something like, oh, she just graduated amid the COVID pandemic, and she's been working full time since then. You know, like 3 days on, you know how nurses work like 12-hour shifts, 3 days at a time, and then, or 4 days or 5 days, and then 2 or 3 days off or whatever. So they're acting like, oh, it's so terrible. She's doing what she signed up for. And she's always scared about getting the COVID. It's ridiculous. And there's all of these grandstanding, there's this black female nurse who is also another so-called artist who's drawing these cartoons about COVID-19 happening and how these women feel like they're called to help the COVID patients. And it's so tough and they're so unappreciated. They're the most, people are calling them frontline workers, frontline essential workers. They're working on the front lines as if it's fighting a war, right? And in a sense, you can say, oh, yeah, this is a war against the disease. This disease is not Ebola. Let's just put it that way, right? Ebola is a crazy disease. This is not as crazy as Ebola. But they're acting like, oh, all this drama about I'm scared and the COVID-19 unit is an eerie place, but meanwhile outside people are acting like nothing's going on and they're upset about the shutdowns and they're like, oh, is this thing even real? But they think that they're seeing what's really going on. When they don't see what's really going on, they see what's going on in hospitals. Hospitals get crazy, especially around flu season too, I hear. And that's why they always want to push, especially when these females get in, these female nurses and MDs get in there and they want to push everybody has to get a flu shot. So you don't get it and then spread it to somebody else. It's shameful. And they don't care about actual health. They're liberals. And by the way, most of these women who are MDs, I'm seeing a bunch of them. And by the way, many of them want vaccines. Many of them want the vaccines. And then they're defending getting the vaccines before the old people, by the way. There's some old people who want these vaccines. And these guys are getting them first. And they're saying, oh, you guys just don't appreciate us. And most of these people, when you go to their Twitter profiles, they're she, hers. They put she, her, she/her. When it's obvious that these are women. That means they're liberals. Here's Shirley Worrell, MD. This is that female black so-called medical doctor who's a resident doctor, a writer, and an artist. And she's by the way, she's successful, Chicago-based. And she's a she, her. Bunch of women like this. And she posted this comic that she drew about, oh, I'm getting a vaccine. And these people are like, oh, I don't appreciate you. You shouldn't be getting a vaccine. I want a vaccine. And it's just breeding this, I don't know, it's like jealousy. And these women are the ones who are jealous. It's weird. And there was another pro-vax doctor, this female Asian woman, a pro-vax so-called MD, who tweeted this thing, imagine believing in COVID vaccine conspiracy theories, because there's some people who don't believe in these vaccines, right? And then seeing pics of hundreds of frontline physicians, literally protesting because they want to be vaccinated, but we're not prioritized. So she's saying, oh, these doctors, these physicians who really know what's going on, they want the vaccines. There's a lot of women who are suckers, including doctors. Doctors, a lot of times they believe in these drugs. And there's a lot of people who, just because a doctor does it doesn't mean I want to take the risk with my life, right? And these women, they don't care if they have babies or not sometimes, right? Because they say you're not supposed to get pregnant within 2 months of having it or more. And so I quote tweeted that, rolled my eyes, and then I got blocked by her. And that's a female, Asian, Seattle-based doctor, so-called doctor. I wonder about these people on Twitter. These so-called doctors who put MD in their tags, right? MD for medical doctor inside their Twitter, what is it called? Handle? Their username, their handle? They put MD in their handle. And I think that's for clout and for having more political sway. You put MD in your handle, and then people will listen to you more on Twitter. Weird. I think that's like an ego trip thing and a pushing your politics thing. There's something wrong with if you're a doctor busy on Twitter, right? I think there's something weird about doctors or people in general being on Twitter, pushing this stuff. By the way, there's a non-binary, I got this from Revolver News. There's a non-binary transgender, a LGBTQIA person in the CDC who's figuring out this vaccine strategy. Who should get what when? Who should get which vaccine or the vaccine when? This is a weirdo guy. He calls himself a they, them. His name is Joe Walker, J-O. Kind of like Joanna. But it's a dude. It's obviously a dude, I'm pretty sure. And on Twitter, his username was Joe Walker, festively defund the police. And then it has a transgender pride flag. Transgender pride. It's usually that baby blue and baby pink and then white or something like that. And this one works for the CDC. That's a part of the federal government, the HHS, the Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And this guy is working in infectious disease epidemiology and modeling. So he's gone to school, very smart or something like that, maybe. Interested in global health, transmission dynamics, and control of disease, right? And so he said that the so-called essential workers should get this vaccine before the old people because they're older and whiter. It doesn't matter. We need the POC, the POC, what are they called? Essential workers to get the vaccine first. What about the old people that want the vaccine, who actually want it, who are actually more at risk from it? Doesn't that make more sense? But they say, oh, but these people, if they go to this, if they work in the hospitals, they could transmit the vaccines to other patients. So don't give it to the patients, give it to the people who are working. Whatever. So some people are saying that is woke values that are putting the lives of people at risk, because the older people are at risk from this, from sickness in general, right? And from this thing. I donated my vaccine, says When It Rains. Yeah, I don't blame you. I would not want that. And by the way, these same people are abortion sickos. They're not only she, hers, giving credence to that fake transgender thing. I thought doctors were supposed to believe in nature and science and reality. I guess not. They hate nature. They hate God. They hate the fact that they're that when you have sex, you get pregnant and have a baby. And they hate the fact that you're either a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. This abortion MD, Shruti Patel, a medical doctor. Just those weirdo, all these women becoming doctors. What a mess. Back in October 8th, she's another she, her, out of Minnesota. They're all over the place. This one's a POC one. I think that's a India name, right? Patel? I'm not sure. So she talked about giving a report on one of my favorite topics in primary care, contraception. She thinks that that's healthcare. Contraception. The great Congressman Steve King says, no, that's not healthcare. We need to have more babies. Birth rates are going down. We need more babies. But she said this, birth control is basic health care. Contraception should be discussed with anyone with reproductive potential, regardless of gender or sex. This is a doctor saying this. Anyone with reproductive potential, regardless of gender or sex. No, women can have babies. I guess that's what she means, right? And then she quote tweeted and talked about blacks and whites and abortion and giving people information about abortion. And by the way, about contraception is healthcare. What a mess. So self-important, egotistical, playing God. Weirdos. Anyway, guys, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I will get to Cody on the vaccines and autism stuff. And then I have a funny little article to share with you from February of 2019 about so-called Facebook content moderators. Interesting, huh? I'll be right back after this brief break for the rest of Hour 2. Hang tight, guys.
Morning high. Please don't leave and say goodbye. The sun is bright, the grass is green. You are close, and I am free. Morning high. Please don't leave and say goodbye. The sun is bright, the grass is green. You are close, and I am free.
Shout out to Bright Lights, John Parfit. This break video rocks, says Reprobeta from D Live. Thank you. I took it myself. That's the seashore. She sells seashells down by the seashore. Nice. What song was that, by the way? Morning High. Morning High again. Your Dino C says you can be a conservative and wear a nose ring too. Guilty. Let the guilty speak. I know, but a look at this woman's profile or Twitter feed. Well, she has her tweets protected now because she went viral and people were making fun of her. This woman, this nose ring wearing white lady who's her dog is having seizures, her mother has got cured from cancer or something like that, but has problems. She's a mess, and she has a boyfriend that she thinks is a good one because he's surrounded by animals or something like that. He's nice to a cat. But anyway, yeah, all right, fine. So-called conservatives can have a nose ring. Chris says, I'm not one to talk, but a nose ring is a red flag. Yeah, I'm going to keep an extra close eye on you. But thank you, Giordano C. When It Rains gave a diamond and said, begging for an unproven vaccine. What the? Yes, that's true. And that's what these women are doing. Lin Yan Chin, there it is. Lin Yan Chin gave a diamond and said, vaccination equals sterilization project or depopulation. Wow. Something to maybe consider or look into. Lin Yan Chin said, with a diamond, their primary aim is procreation age people. Why? Oh, interesting. Interesting point. Lin Yan Chin with the diamond, vaccination equals elite contraception to deplorables. Yeah, watch out for this stuff, guys. These people are messed up in the head and spirit, right? Let me get to Cody in Sacramento, California. He wants to talk about these vaccines and autism and stuff. Cody, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
It was hard for your call screener, I think, to hear me when I first called in. I wanted to kind of talk about globe Earth and the Bible mostly, but I don't want to be a snake in the grass. And
that's fine. If you want to talk about that, that's fine with me too. I've been talking about that a little.
So this little model where Antarctica circles a disk it's just retarded. It places Chile, the southern tip of Chile, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, all like very far apart from each other.
The globe Earth does?
Mm-hmm.
The globe Earth does?
They're all very close to Antarctica, and they're all on different sides. So North America is in between all of those. So so they're like on four different points on the on the flat Earth model. So like everything in the equator and stuff like that, it's all like it's like they are surrounding, that area. You can see the same. You're
talking about South Africa, Australia, mm-hmm. Chile.
Yep.
I used to pronounce it Chile. And something else.
Well, New Zealand is down there too.
Oh, right.
But it's real close to Australia. So on the flat Earth model, there's a whole bunch of northern hemisphere land masses that are in between those. But they say that the stars go away because they get so far away you can't see them, and light doesn't actually travel forever. But you can see the same southern stars from all those places.
Which one is ridiculous, the flat Earth or the ball Earth globe?
Flat Earth is ridiculous.
Flat Earth?
You can see the same stars. Yeah, flat Earth is ridiculous.
Okay.
You can see the same southern stars at the same day at the same time on all of those spots, and you can't see any of those stars from North America, yet North America is in between those two southern hemisphere nations. So there's no way that you should be able to be in Chile and Australia both seeing the same stars, and yet the landmass that's in between you on the flat Earth model, that's in the northern hemisphere on the globe model, you can't see the stars. It's just, yeah.
Okay.
It's
All right,
stupid.
interesting. I think I know what you're talking about. So, like, if you go to those different places and you look up in the sky, you can see certain stars, such as maybe the Southern Cross one of those things? Well, that's a constellation, right? The Southern Cross.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not visible to us in the northern hemisphere?
No, but it should be, because we're in between the two places that can see it. So
Interesting.
that doesn't. Yeah, and they'll never have an answer for that one.
Checkmate.
I mean, it's more and more ridiculous.
Checkmate,
we
flat
blink
earthers.
in and out of different dimensions, and there's flashlights in the. I mean, no matter what you tell them, they just come up with something more ridiculous.
I like the ball Earth stuff. It's so cool. I think it's like it captures the imagination. It's like, dang, if that's not proof of God, but people act like that's proof that there is no God, which is weird, or that we're insignificant or something.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I also post online under the name Evil is Real.
Oh, nice. Nice to hear from you.
Oh, here I am.
Appreciate it. You've called in the past, or is this your first time?
No, I've called in the past, but back then I posted under sit down, shut up, and listen.
Oh, okay. I remember that name too. Interesting.
Yeah, I think, what's your name? I'll sit down, shut up, and listen. You're like, okay, but what's your name?
So you just doxed yourself for the flat earthers to go after Evil is Real in the YouTube comments.
Oh, Jesus.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Bible, too, because I post on that a lot. So John 15:15, Jesus is saying that, I no longer call you servants, because the servant doesn't know what the master's plan is. But since I've revealed to you the Father's plan, I no longer call you servants, but I call you friends.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
That should mean that if you are a servant of Christ, you do not know the Father's plan, and you do not understand it. Because if you understand it, you're not a servant, you're a friend. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but there's elsewhere in the Bible, even after he came in and rose again and stuff, that says we're slaves of Christ, right? Something like that. So can't you be a slave and a brother?
Yeah, here's the thing. Romans 1:1, Paul starts off with, I, Paul, a bondservant or slave of Christ.
Right.
Right. So
are you saying that Paul is evil?
Absolutely.
Oh, dang.
He's a false apostle. And obviously,
okay, flat earthers, I give you back.
So,
there is maybe flat after all. Because I'm not with you on the Paul bashing, but.
Yeah, sure. But in Revelations, John says there's 12 foundations in the kingdom of heaven, one for each of the apostles of the Lamb. It doesn't mention a 13th little stuck on the end.
Yeah, but wasn't the 12th one committing suicide? Are you saying that Judas Iscariot? Judas got replaced with Barnabas. Oh, okay. Dang. You got me there.
Not Paul. Yeah. Then Jesus warns about somebody that will come in the sheep's clothing, but inwardly is a ravenous wolf. Paul's the only person in the New Testament.
What's wrong with what he teaches?
Paul?
Yeah.
He teaches that you should be able to eat unclean foods, ignore the Sabbath, that the law died. Jesus said not one tittle or jot from the law will disappear until the end of the earth. Paul says the law died, was nailed on the cross with Jesus. He's against circumcision. He's against that the Torah was evil. He never quotes Jesus once. He wrote 2/3 of the New Testament and says he's teaching what Jesus taught, but never quotes Jesus. Never says this is what Jesus taught.
But that's because he wasn't around. He did quote him, right? Who wrote Acts? Somebody said, Saul, why do you persecute me? Jesus said that.
No, Luke wrote Acts.
Was Luke a snake too?
Luke was Paul's secretary, essentially.
So does that mean he's a snake? Is Acts bad too then?
Acts is not nearly as bad as what Paul wrote, but Acts is more like a historical writing than an actual teaching of stuff.
I don't know how you guys
Paul-
jump to conclusions against Paul. And I've heard this from a bunch of people.
Jesus warned about, a guy that will come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly is a ravenous wolf. After his conversion, Paul says to somebody, I am a Benjamite and a Pharisee. So he still calls himself a Pharisee and a Benjamite after his conversion.
But the Pharisees the Pharisees were better than the Sadducees because the Pharisees believed in resurrection, and the Sadducees said that there was no resurrection.
Right. Well, if you type in
So
one
it's-
few Pharisees, you
so
get
in that
about 20
sense-
quotes from Jesus.
So in that sense, it's good to be a Pharisee. Jesus sided with the Pharisees in that argument, right?
Jesus warns against Pharisees, Pharisees over and over. And
I know, but
he also claims he's also the
they
only
were
one
right
that
about
claims to
some
be a
stuff too.
Benjamite.
Jesus sided with the Pharisees with regard to the resurrection from the dead.
Mm.
You didn't know that? Or you don't remember? Or you do?
Not quite.
Yeah, he said that the Pharisees are like, yeah, because the Pharisees and Sadducees hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Pharisees disagree with the Sadducees. The Pharisees believe that there is resurrection from the dead, and the Sadducees thought that there was no resurrection. And Jesus said there is.
Jesus was not a Pharisee.
Yeah, probably not, but he agreed with the Pharisees about resurrection.
Yeah, that's like saying
So if you're born,
a Republican is better than a Democrat.
Right. So if you're born if you're born and raised into being a Catholic or a Lutheran or a Baptist or whatever, yeah, you kind of overcome it, right? You overcome what's wrong with it, but you don't like completely abandon it. I don't know. I don't see what's wrong with Paul still. You didn't really. Anyway.
Well, Jesus warns about somebody that will come teaching, and that he will come dressed in the lamb's clothing, but inwardly is a ravenous wolf.
There's a whole lot of that today. I'll tell you that.
Paul's the only one in the New Testament that actually identifies himself as a Benjamite. And the prophecy that Israel gave to Benjamin, he said, your tribe will be the tribe of the ravenous wolf. So,
oh, man, I think you're reading too much into it.
And then he says, this guy will also even deceive the very elect. So we're looking for somebody that's a Benjamite that can deceive even Jesus' apostles, that will claim to be a false apostle. When John tells us there's 12 in Revelations, and he says he's the 13th, and he never quotes Jesus, it's just, why would you believe Paul?
But because you see what he's the only reason that you would believe Paul is if you see what he's saying is true. It rings true. If the stuff that he says rings true, that he writes in the Bible rings true, nice. Then you more than just sounds nice. I mean, you have to either you know the truth or you don't.
Huh?
Either you know the truth or you don't.
Yeah, and if you know the truth, you're a friend and you're not a servant. But Paul goes off and calls himself a servant or a slave every chance he gets.
But there's a lot of people that say we can't help but speak the truth and stuff like that. We can't help it.
Yes,
what does that make you?
Anybody that says, I'm a servant of Christ doesn't know what it's all about.
I think that you're just, I think you're jumping on words. I think you're jumping on words, Cody.
God and Jesus don't need servants. God and Jesus don't need servants.
Oh, come on.
No, they just want to be. Jesus says, "You're my friend now." It's real easy, man. They just.
I know, but you're nitpicking. You're nitpicking on words and points that may not mean what you think that they mean.
Okay, so Paul's original name was Saul.
Yeah.
Which is spelled the exact same way in Hebrew as the Hebrew word for hell. So in Habakkuk, it talks.
This is silly. I gotta go.
About how someone named Saul will separate you. Take care.
All right. Nice talking with you, Cody. Appreciate it, man.
It is. Talk to you later.
All right. What a mess. Okay. Bonus dears amigo, says Jib Jab. If Wuhan don't need a vaccine, then why do we? Because we're old, fat, and unhealthy, unlike the Asians. No, it's a good question. Does Wuhan have a vaccine when they opened back up? Are those young people who are all partying and going to clubs and dancing and drinking, are they getting in trouble? Probably they are. But I don't know. You know, it's an interesting question. There's viral video of Wuhan people out partying in the street and indoors in clubs, I think. And it was played on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. Did they get a vaccine? I don't know. Before I get back to this stuff that I wanted to cover, let me get to Henry in Pittsburgh, PA. I've been to Pittsburgh. Henry, how are you doing?
I'm doing so well. I just happened to call in at the exact right time to listen to a man who doesn't know the definition of a pallbearer.
Pallbearer.
That last dude needs to look up what a... He doesn't need to look it up. He just needs to think about what a pallbearer does.
A pallbearer, P-A-L-L, right?
I don't know how it's spelled. I just know how to say it.
A pallbearer.
I didn't call in.
A pallbearer carries. A pallbearer carries, P-A-L-L-B-E-A-R-E-R, carries the casket at a funeral.
Yeah, he does, and he sends the dead to the grave. Safa, in other words. So, but I didn't call to correct the last dude, even though I already was.
So, are you referring to like the Apostle Paul, or the fake apostle, as some of you guys think?
The sound Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I didn't call. I just happened to catch you, so I was put on hold at just the right time to talk about my last will and testament.
Uh-oh.
Would you like to hear it?
Are you sick? You dying?
No.
Are you gonna die?
Not. I've never been more alive in my life.
How do you have a last will and testament without being about to die?
That's a great question, actually. And would you like an answer to it?
Yeah.
Cool. So I went to Los Angeles to visit my cousin for his birthday. I didn't see him until I had to rush to the airport. Sorry, I got to remember to breathe, because that's all you need to ever do.
In short, Henry.
Yeah. So I was sent to a mental hospital against my will by my mother because she has some issues, to say the least.
How about you?
No, I said my piece. So
how'd you escape having issues if your mother has issues? How'd you get?
I told her that I understand why she has issues, because I could see her for a human being instead of saying what that last caller was saying was reading the Bible, because I've never read it.
Okay, cool.
I just flip through it and open a page, slam my finger down, and read what it says, and then I don't read into it. I don't read into the Bible because
that's fair. That sounds reasonable. That does sound reasonable.
Isn't that reasonable? Like, I also just got engaged, and I'm waiting a long time. Well, hopefully not a really long time, but so what would you like to know next? So,
you called me. Yeah. You called in. I saw something about doctors pushing lies is what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so they're trying to feed me benzos.
Oh.
Benzodiazepine, SSRIs.
That's what Jordan B. Peterson was taking, right? And that messed him up. Yeah.
I was given one because I only accepted one, and then I told them what I needed because I know what I need because I did enough research to understand my body and that I need to eat kosher because you are what you eat, right?
Yeah. Physically, yes.
And yes, physically, exactly.
And it can affect your mind.
And we're not going to talk about spiritually right now, because
what you do matters.
Correct. So you need to be successful in life, and that's the word. So I got to the hospital, and I want to tell you, the quote unquote key doctor that I was witnessing thrust his hips in my direction, and I said,
I got it. Sorry, Henry, if you're an honest person, I had to hang up. This caller is all over the place, says Based America First. Yes. But thank you for the call. I don't know. I almost want to tell him to go get counseling. Call Jesse Lee Peterson for counseling. It might be the best. But I don't know if that's even quite right, because maybe he says that there's nothing wrong with him, and if there isn't, then he doesn't need counseling either, or he doesn't want it, right? But thank you, man. Appreciate it. I hung up because I seemed to be getting weird in a sense that doesn't seem family friendly. And by the way, I'm not into that. But thank you. Call Jesse, please, says when it rains. Yeah. It is a question if parents and family members can do really evil things to one another, call the police on them, get them arrested, right? And oftentimes those people who get arrested are innocent. For example, there was a guy who was locked in a room. He locked himself in a closet or a room, and he pretended like he was calling the police on his girlfriend, who was not his ex-girlfriend, who he broke things off with, but she was still living with him. This is a story from Church with Jesse Lee Peterson from a few weeks back. And long story short, the cops arrested him because the girlfriend really called the cops on him and falsely accused him. But if you're forced to go to a mental hospital, I don't know. It seems like there might be something wrong with you to be taken to a mental hospital. But maybe. Let me get to Trey in Oklahoma. He wants to comment on Paul, and then I will get to this stuff. Trey, what's up? Oh, man, he's not.
Hang on. I'm getting you off of.
Appreciate it. What's up, man?
Getting you off a speaker. I just want to comment on that caller was saying Paul was a false apostle.
Yeah.
So I've heard this argument before, which, you got to throw out, like the caller said, 2/3 of the New Testament. You got to just toss it out.
Right.
And so I do not believe that. And kind of missing the point I was. Sorry, I'm stopping right now. I'm in the car. These people, what I've noticed about these people who say Paul was a false apostle and all this stuff, they are in love with religion and tradition. And I don't think they truly love God. I think they love the law, and I think that they love, God giving them laws. I think these are the same type of people, who fight the flat earth, but also say Paul was a false apostle. And they also would be the same people who would call for a king, like back in the old days when the Israelites didn't have a king, and they said, oh, the other nations have a king. Well, we want a king.
Who knows?
And
I don't know. Yeah.
If you look at the history of the law, because this guy, I can tell he's all Torah. He's about following the law, which good luck on that, man. Just read Leviticus and see if you can follow all that today. It's impossible. You can't wear clothing with two different types of fabric. You can't shave your beard. You can't, there's just a whole laundry list of things. And if you read from the beginning of Genesis, God gave man one law, don't eat from the tree of good and evil, of knowledge of good and evil. And so from there, it was a falling point, from him taking the apple from Eve, listening to Eve, submitting to the woman. And the Bible is a continuation of more and more laws, the Israelites falling, God's people falling, and him giving them more laws, and then them not following the laws.
Yeah.
So I think anybody who's obsessed with the law really needs, if you want to try and follow the law, go for it. But, multiple times it says the law will destroy you. We should be sinless. We should not be worldly.
I don't know if Cody is into following all those Torah things. I'm not sure.
Well, I've never heard of a person who thought Paul was a false apostle who wasn't into that.
Oh, really? Yeah, I know some guys who they don't seem like they're into that. But I don't know. It's a strange thing. I hadn't really been exposed to it before a couple years ago.
Yeah. And hey, did you bring up that I'm glad that Jesse Peterson, I tried to get a hold of Jesse Peterson this morning, but I couldn't about something else. But I'm glad that y'all brought up the millions of dollars they sent to Pakistan and Iran for gender studies and a whole bunch of other crap.
Yeah, you're talking about in this bill, this so-called COVID relief bill. There's I saw Milo. I follow Milo and some others on Telegram. He sent a message out that $500 million for Israel. And really it's like for Israel to spend on our so-called defense contractors. But yeah, all kinds of stuff is pushed into this
They actually
bill.
gave Israel $600 billion.
Really? I thought it was 500. I don't know. Anyway.
That's what I don't know. That's what I read. Maybe I misread it. But did you bring that to Jesse Lee Peterson's attention, or who brought?
No, I haven't even talked to anybody about it.
Oh, okay. Because I
not-
was just wondering who gives him some of his news. I didn't know if you.
I'm
give
not
him
his producer. That's his producer.
Oh, okay. So that's the ankle baby.
Yep.
All righty. Well, it's good to talk to you, Nick.
James.
James
But thank you.
Why did I say Nick?
Because you're thinking about the ankle baby.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Trey. Thank you, man.
All right. Have a good day.
All right. You as well. Take care. So these Facebook content moderators, speaking of, what do you want to call it? Censorship. This is from The Verge. And it's talking about the secret lives of Facebook moderators in America. And it's funny, in this article title, The Verge is a far left outlet, right? It came out February 25th, 2019, right? By Casey Newton, who's no doubt a liberal on The Verge and on Twitter. And by the way, it's funny, he's wearing a mask that doesn't cover his nose, but this is from 2019, before you're even supposed to be wearing a mask. But content warning, this story contains discussions of serious mental health issues and racism. So it starts off, oh yes, racism. Content warning. Jeez. And in the background of this illustration, it has the anonymous Guy Fawkes mask, right? And Pepe the Frog and a gun and a tank and JFK, John F. Kennedy, the guy who was assassinated. There's so-called conspiracy theories about him and the moon landing and the beautiful Confederate flag, which is awesome, and a skull and all that stuff, right? Syringe, referencing these vaccines. Interesting, huh? But it starts off with this story about this woman who's showing trainees, people who she's going to be training, on how to moderate content on Facebook, and she's presented with this murder scene of somebody getting stabbed to death, right? And she goes off and cries after handling this situation. So this thing is not for women, right? Especially not delicate women. But she sobbed and cried by herself after dealing with that story. So these unstable people, which, you know, you don't want a woman to be dealing with a murder video, right? But why are they employing a woman? But whatever, she signed up for it. But there's all kinds of stuff that gets content moderated. It happened to me, happened to Jesse Lee Peterson, and to this day, Jesse Lee Peterson doesn't have access to his personal profile, I don't think, his official Facebook page, official Jesse Lee Peterson, the Jesse Lee Peterson Show, or the Fallen State. To this day, these are the type of people who are preventing decent men who are putting out the truth in perfect love on Facebook, banned from Facebook. Crazy, huh? So there's a whole lot of secrecy. There's this company called Cognizant. And Facebook has this deal where, it has to be secret. You can't put out these people's personal info, even though you censor them. You can't dox them and say, oh, look at this person. And they don't get a lot of perks. They get, in Arizona, which is a cheap place to live, as I understand, they get $26,000 a year, maybe, right? It's not a lot, supposedly. But it's funny because there's one former employee who has begun to question certain aspects of the Holocaust. Another former employee says that he sleeps with a gun at his side and has mapped every escape route to his house and said, I no longer believe that 9/11 was a terrorist attack. So some of these Facebook content moderators are getting what some might call red-pilled by the content that they're moderating. And yes, sometimes they do crack the hammer on these people. $28,800 moderators in Phoenix will make per year, while the average Facebook employee who doesn't live in probably Phoenix but lives in Silicon Valley, which is expensive, gets a total compensation of $240,000 a year. Wow, with all that stuff. Anyway, team leaders will micromanage content moderators every bathroom break. 2 Muslim employees were ordered to stop praying during their 9 minutes per day of allotted wellness time. Some of these moderators are like having sex in the stairwell and in like a break room where you're supposed to, it's set aside for women, nursing mothers to be nursing their children. They're having sex in there, and they're calling it trauma bonding. One employee called that trauma bonding, having sex. And they're smoking pot on their breaks too. They're high and having sex, moderating you as being inappropriate on Facebook. Isn't this weird? Crazy. They're coping with seeing traumatic images like, you know, there's all these ISIS murder videos. I've watched a few of them, right? Just to see the evil. And after a while, I was like, I don't want to watch any more of these. And Jesse's like, but I sometimes don't want to watch these videos. But some of these people, I guess it's their job. They have to watch them. People committing suicide or telling dark jokes or just saying normal stuff like telling the truth about phenomena with regard to race or with regard to women or men or whatever, or homosexuals. Employees are developing PTSD-like symptoms. That's post-traumatic stress disorder from seeing content on online. It's interesting. It's crazy, but some employees have begun to embrace fringe viewpoints of the videos and memes that they're supposed to moderate. The Phoenix site is home to a flat earther and a Holocaust denier, according to them. A former employee tells us this no longer believes that 9/11 was a terrorist attack, as I mentioned before. These people, it's a long article, it's crazy. And you know, for years, I remember it made headlines on CNN, Mark Zuckerberg, talking about Mark Zuckerberg is the CEO and founder, one of the founders or stealers maybe, of Facebook, right? And he testified in Congress or something that it's not, he said it's, and this was supposed to be controversial somehow. He said it's every person who's questioning the Holocaust is not necessarily doing it in bad faith. Something to that effect, right? And that's supposed to be controversial. Some people are saying, no, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. So there have been people who push for it, including Sacha Baron Cohen. Wasn't he big behind that thing? Sacha Baron Cohen, the guy who plays in that movie Borat and stuff like that. He was behind pushing for total censorship of the Holocaust stuff. You're only increasing suspicion by clamping down on people's free speech. What a mess. So that's that Facebook content moderators. By the way, between official Jesse Lee Peterson, The Fallen State, and Jesse Lee Peterson radio show pages, there were like well over 200 likes, and we've built that over years, and we were pretty careful, but no, they don't want to give it. No. And these people are smoking weed and having sex at work, and a bunch of liberals and females who can't handle stuff. Not a job for an emotional woman, but... And what about free speech? What about... This is America. Put one of those things, if it's graphic, right? Put a graphic thing over it. Like Instagram does. But Instagram sometimes removes the stuff entirely. They're part of Facebook. Ridiculous. And by the way, so these people are so immoral, and then they're trying to enforce their fake version of morality on us. Ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, these shutdowns, they want you unhealthy, I think. Like Robert from Kansas pointed out, they're so evil, they do want you, they want to depopulate, right? The Epoch Times reports a Gallup poll says, and Gallup, yeah, they're establishment, they're liberals, but it says Americans' so-called mental health, and I say so-called because I don't believe in this mental health stuff. I think it's more spiritual than people realize. but then it affects the mind because the spirit affects the body, right? Mental health hits a 20-year low ahead of renewed lockdowns. And again, I don't like this mental health term. I think that's swaying people towards believing in, oh, through my intellect, I can figure things out, or through changing my hormone levels or my chemical imbalances, I can overcome this stuff. Yeah, it's real. No, you're only addressing the symptoms. It's so female. Liberal, perhaps homosexual. I think he is a homosexual writer. Brad Palumbo. I talked briefly about him yesterday. That guy he's a rhino. Brad Palumbo, young, openly, shamelessly homosexual, so-called conservative writer, right? But sometimes he writes true stuff a little bit by accident. No, he's trying to be honest, right? In California and other parts of the country, Americans are headed back to lockdown, right? We're in a lockdown. This was out December 18th, I think. Otherwise facing renewed restrictions on day-to-day lives amid another so-called spike of COVID-19. And by the way, did you know that there's a mutated COVID now? Ooh, mutated COVID. Stocks fell, I heard, in the UK because of this mutated COVID. It's going to keep on mutating year after year. And they're going to enforce more vaccines and stuff. Get your flu shot. Get your COVID shot. What a mess. Control freaks. A new Gallup poll shows these lockdowns come as people are already struggling with their mental health. Oh, can you go back to Monday's folder? I think I have information on this mental health stuff. Let's see. Monday folder. I have some graphs. Mental health COVID. And then I will get back to calls, guys. Gallup tweeted out Americans' latest assessment of their own mental health is worse than it has been at any point in 2 decades. And I told you about those young people contemplating suicide like crazy, didn't I? I think I told you guys about that. And this is a Gallup poll. The new polling found that 34% of respondents, which is low, said their mental health was excellent. 9 points down from 2019. You think? Being forced to be shut in all the time? They'll arrest you if you go to the beach? There was a crazy video of somebody ice skating or playing hockey or practicing hockey up in Canada. And the cops are threatening to taser him because he's violating COVID orders. Give me a break. 85% of Americans had rated their mental health as good or excellent in 2019. 76% this year, down 9 points. Good to excellent. There's this John Miltimore. He explained for FEE.org, which this Brad Palumbo guy works for FEE. Has to do with economics, right? Said look at this graph. Americans' assessment, this is the Gallup poll graph, right? Of their mental health, 2001 to 2020. 85, 81, 88, this is the early 2000s. 89, 84, 2014. 82 after 2016 because the mainstream media was freaking out over Trump, right? Trump derangement syndrome. Maybe that's why. 85%, and then 2020, 34%, and 76%. Believe, excellent to excellent / good. Mental health. So-called mental health. And the question is, on this questionnaire, was how would you describe your own mental health or emotional well-being at this time? What are these words? Talk about secularism, right? Would you say it is excellent, good, or only fair, or poor? So a whole lot of people were only fair or poor, and more than ever. And they have this picture of this woman who looks mentally ill. This pretty POC woman who's mentally ill, sitting cross-legged on a couch on Gallup News. Of course, it's one of those buy your own generic photographs. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that 1 in 4 young Americans committed suicide, or considered suicide, not committed, this past summer amid life under lockdown. And they're supposed to be social. Young people according to reports, cannot handle not being social. Phil Kerpen tweeted out back in August, he's a blue check mark on Twitter, that the CDC says 25.5% of Americans ages 18 to 24 seriously considered suicide in the past 30 days. They say. You know, drama queen young people, am I right? 16% of age 25 to 44. Those are big numbers though, right? And they're making this romantic. They're romanticizing mental illness, depression, suicide. People are putting in their profile. You know how they're trying to destigmatize mental illness and depression and suicidal thoughts and stuff. People are not just destigmatizing it, they're embracing it. They're like, oh, it's part of their identity. I'm a depressed, mentally ill LGBTQIA. And a she, her, or they, there. Weird people. And they're making it seem, I remember back in, they've been promoting being a misfit forever. Remember Rebel Without a Cause? That James Dean movie? Some of you guys don't remember. I don't even think I've watched the whole thing. James Dean, right? The guy who got himself killed. He died, right? At a young age. And he was like a misfit. And there's these people that are like quiet. Or they're tortured. Died in a car crash. On drugs, bags under his eyes. Made it seem cool to be, and not just him, a bunch of people. It's like been promoted like crazy to be quiet, weak man that the woman feels sorry for and is mysterious. She's mysterious. I mean, she feels that he's mysterious. And they promote homosexuality and all that stuff to be as though it's right. Freaks. By the way, speaking of mental health, side note, let me take you on this. Chris says he was like that for quite a while. A lot of people, they were promoting just being, I don't know, it's like they're promoting being weak. And it's cool to be a misfit. And it just delays your maturity. What a mess. Speaking of Americans' ratings of their mental health as excellent by demographic groups, 2019 versus 2020. This is interesting. Males versus females. In 2019, 49% of males rated their mental health as excellent. But just 37% of females rated their so-called mental health as excellent. A year later, the males went from 49 to 41% during the COVID shutdowns. And the females went from 37% to 27%. And so we want these non-mentally excellent women voting. They're celebrating these non-mentally excellent women voting for Joe Biden. Right? They're celebrating. And okay, party identification, Republican, Independent, or Democrat. Republican, 56% were excellent. Why is it so low? Independents, 44% were excellent in 2019. Democrats, 30% were excellent. Democrats are a bunch of mentally ill people. Told you, liberalism is a mental illness. The old boomer meme. It's true, though. 2020, from 56% mentally excellent to 41% among Republicans. What a shame. Bunch of rhinos. Am I right? And independents went from 44% excellent to 32% excellent. Just 32% mentally excellent. Democrats only fell 1% because they're all excited. They feel excellent because everybody else is miserable, I guess. So they dropped by only 1 percentage point. I mean, you're scraping the bottom if you're 30%. If 30% of the Democrat voters feel excellent. Religious service attendance. Weekly, 42%. Nearly weekly or monthly, 47%. Seldom, never, 42%. That's interesting. In 2020, 46% of those who still went to church, they went up. Their mental excellence went up. It went down for nearly weekly or monthly to 35, And it went down for the seldom never church attenders to 29%. Interesting, huh? Whites versus non-whites. 45% in 2019 were excellent among the whites. Non-whites, 40%. 5 below. And they both went down to 35 and 32. Marital status, married, 49%, excellent. Non-married, 37%. We are the 37%. Those of us who are not married. Anyway. And that went down, too, for the 2020 to 41% and 27%. Ages 18 to 29, they're the worst. 18 to 29, 37% mentally excellent. Went down to 28% this year. 30 to 49 was just 40%. The only mentally well people were the Gen X to the boomers. 51% were mentally excellent. Crazy, huh? And the only mentally excellent people in amongst the household income group were the people making $100,000 or more. Huh. But everything went down in 2020. Thanks, in part, to COVID. But honestly, we should be able to handle anything, right? If we're Christians, we're supposed to, like, overcome anything. But also, it's ridiculous. They're taking away people's freedom. It's the people's fault for letting it happen, but come on. Come on, man. Get a life, as Joe Biden might say. So the 1 in 4 Americans, young Americans, right, 18 to 24, considered suicide during life under lockdown. One California hospital doctor told local news that in May, during the lockdown, he witnessed a year's worth of suicide attempts in the last 4 weeks. That quiet. I guess that means that the parents are failing, right? Because they're not preparing the young people to handle anything. You should be able to handle anything, right? And also, you should, at least sneak and have your freedom, right? Sneak and have your freedom? Social isolation is bad for you, they say. And I think that makes sense. Even the Bible says, let us not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing. That means meet up. Go to church. If you're scared, go to church, as the rap song says. Some study showed that socially isolated individuals, had a 30% higher risk of dying in the next 7 years. Whoa, and that's largest in the middle age. We're opening the treasure chest, guys. Loneliness can accelerate cognitive decline in older adults, and they like keeping those older adults isolated from everybody. You've seen those weird pictures of those people hugging their grandchildren through that plastic. It's all weird. What a mess. And by the way, inactivity can take a toll real fast. Inactivity, according to the Epoch Times, James McHenry wrote that muscle loss in just 2 weeks. Dang, how about 10 years? Wow. So keep active if you don't want to get a beta back. Let me make sure that I get the treasure chest open because I don't like forgetting and doing it all late. Let me get to Kevin in Illinois in the meantime. Kevin wants to talk about that guy who's a pro-Trump guy who's a UFC head, Dana White. What's up, Kevin? What do you have for us?
What's up, big dog? Yeah, I want to talk about Dana White because it's honestly one of the few leaders in the entire world that doesn't give a crap what the outsiders think. Look at all these other sports commissioners, leaders, CEOs, companies. They all pander. They all get down on their knees. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. Or just do whatever it takes to keep the money flowing in. And I don't want to cause any problems. Just make sure I give me my big paycheck at the end of the month. That's pretty much all they care about. But Dana White, no. He has his principles, and he has his business philosophy. And this Twitter video he released. I don't know if you should, I think you should definitely check it out.
Okay.
Released on his Twitter.
Dana White,
And
the head of the UFC, guys, Ultimate Fighter Championship, something like that. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. He just pretty much called him out, and everyone's throwing a fit. Oh, you're patting yourself on the back for becoming the first sport to bring back to live events and this and that, and they're all upset because he called them out for saying doesn't care what the media thinks when they all attacked him for putting on events, saying, oh, that's irresponsible. We got a global pandemic. But now that they realize he did it safely, it was successful, record-breaking numbers, pay-per-view buys, ratings through the roof.
Yeah.
And now they want to say, oh, he just patting himself on the back. No, we got to hold these media members accountable, the ones who said, oh, he's irresponsible, it's dangerous, this and that. Well, he succeeded. No one died. It went through successful events, but they don't get held accountable. People just want to, like, journalists are the ones supposed to hold the people accountable. Well, who's holding the journalists accountable?
Yeah.
For their lies, deceit,
yes,
et cetera, et cetera.
President Trump and many of us, right? That's cool. And Dana White, apparently. Nice.
Dana White's got balls. I don't agree with him with everything, but he's got a set of balls on him, and that's what we need more than anything right now.
Sorry,
but,
kids.
Hey, I'll leave you to it.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you, man. Thank you for the tip. Yeah, I respect that. That's cool. Didn't he buy an island or something, or rent an island, or build an island so that he could hold these events because America is not a free country anymore? I think he did, so that they could do their fighting thing. I was always a little bit leery of these fighting stuff, especially as it's grown, because it's like, well, I mean, everything is evil, right? Or prone to degeneracy now. Because it reminds me of like the gladiators in the waning days of the Roman times, and all this preoccupation with entertainment and stuff like that, or maybe even brutality a little bit. Not to be a beta. But I respect that guy for standing on some common sense. Am I right? Ridiculous. You're welcome, gave a Ninja Guinea. Thank you. Appreciate that. Flov. I think that's how you pronounce it. Gave a diamond and said, Hake, don't tell him about the wooden doors. Don't tell him about the wooden doors. Oh, no. What's the wooden doors? Am I missing something? I'm not sure. I didn't hear that. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the tip. Airtight. Am I right? That's funny. That's funny. In case I didn't get to it, oh yeah, Lin Yan Shin made the point about the elite depopulation agenda. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. These people are such control freaks. Such a shame. Anyway, guys, get some exercise. Well, welfare, not work. What a shame, right? We don't want your $600. Okay, we'll take it. But we want to get back to work. We want our freedom back. I guess we're just going to have to take it back and just work. Anyway, guys, thank you. This is the Hake Report, thehakereport.com for my stuff, including t-shirts and stuff. JesseLeePeterson.com for all things JLP, including a link to Bond, which is rebuildingtheman.com. That's where you can find information on counseling, church, the matching donation thing. We have a matching grant, $30,000. A family man who appreciates and loves Bond and Jesse Lee Peterson, wants to encourage other people to support. So thank you. Appreciate that. All right, guys, take care.